Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to be here with you today. My name is Christel Crawford, and I'm a certified Access Consciousness facilitator. And I'm here today with Ramona Jind, who is a bars facilitator in Delhi, India, and I'm actually in Canada. So we're really excited to be chatting today and with each other, and also to include you in this conversation. Just to give you a little background on the way this hangout got created, I was working with, I had Ramona and I both work with clients, and we do this really phenomenal body process that Access Consciousness originated called the Access Bars. And the bars is 32 points on the head when you lightly touch them, just release lifetimes of energetic limitations. So what Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, always says, that when you have a bars session, you either feel like you had a great massage, worst case scenario, or your whole life will change, best case scenario. And we've been really, a few friends of mine and I have been talking to people around the world about the different kinds of miracles that we're actually seeing with the bars. And one of the areas that I was getting really curious about is I had never personally had any experience with a person who had a tumor or cancer seeing relief or total change. And I started asking about it, and Ramona popped up on a feed on Facebook and said that she had some phenomenal stories. So I want to introduce you to Ramona and kind of let her tell you a bit about that. So, hey, Ramona.
Hi, how are you?
Great. I'm great. I'm so grateful to be here today with you. Can you tell me a little bit, or tell us a bit about how you came to Access and how that came into your life and what you're doing now in your sessions and working with people?
Sure, I'd love to do that. So I actually came to Access for myself in the sense that, there was a lot of crap that I'd been going through for many years. And so the first thing when I found out about the bars and about Access, I found a facilitator here in New Delhi. So I got her phone number, I called her, and I said that, I'd like to come to you for a session. So the first thing she told me was, no, I think you'd like to learn the bars. I said, no, I think I'd like to come to you for a session. So that's kind of where it all started. And interestingly, I did actually start my journey with Access Consciousness, learning the bars. That was my first, kind of exposure to Access. And so it was an amazing experience going through that one-day class. And post that, actually, I went back to the same facilitator and we did a couple of sessions. And I thought, doing the bars and doing those two sessions started shifting a lot of things for me in my life. There were just so many places I'd felt, stuck for more than, I don't know, 15 years. And just going through that one class actually released a lot, because now that I actually also teach the bars, a lot of people, even people who do sessions, often wonder, like, how can doing a class change something for you? And
Yeah,
it's really hard to put it into words till you experience it for yourself, you know.
it is.
So yeah, so that was sometime last year, early last year. And post that, I actually started doing the bars for family and friends. And just those sessions just seem to bring a lot of change for people very quickly, in just so many different areas. So whether we're talking about finance, we're talking about health, relationships, or just people who are just feeling really low or depressed, and you know didn't really think that life was worth living. That's kind of where I started, and then just by word of mouth, I think, some of my friends started telling their friends about it, and so I started, you know, getting more people who were interested in learning more about the bars or doing sessions.
Yeah. So, and that's so cool because it mirrors a lot of my story. Although I did start out with a session. She asked me, when I was looking at it, I'm like, I don't get where you start with this thing, because if you go to the Access Consciousness website, it can be a little bit
Yes,
confusing. There's so much choice. And she
sure.
said, so she introduced me to that tool, light and heavy. And she's like, well, which one's lighter for you? It would be lighter to have a session or lighter to have a class. And I was like, what do you mean light and heavy? And so I kind of held them out here, both here in my hands. And I was like, I guess it's lighter to have a session. So yeah, for me too, I had my first session, and in an hour and a half, it was like and I'd been working on myself really hard for about 3 years, to get myself to being happy. So I get it. Like in an hour and a half, there was so much change, more than I had probably gotten in a year before that. It was really stunning. You were saying to me that you had some really amazing results with people that came to you with tumors. Could
Right.
you tell me a little bit about that?
So I would love to share that with you. So I had one client who I believe he was diagnosed last year. So I think in June of last year he got diagnosed with a tumor that was in the pancreas. And initially, what happened was that they tried to do a surgery for him. And when they did open him out, they realized that the tumor was not something that they could touch. So they went ahead and kind of closed him up again. And post that, they told him what we're going to try to do now is we'll do chemotherapy and we'll do radiation because surgery is not an option for you. And basically, so he went through the whole process of several, sessions of chemotherapy as well as radiation. And by November of last year, because they kept, checking him with scans, and there was no change in terms of the size of the tumor. And I think the chemotherapy and the radiation started making him feel really sick, and he lost a lot of weight. And it came to a point where I think it was, difficult for him to even go about his everyday routine. Like he'd stopped working and all of that, but just, getting ready himself and things like that became really hard for him. So in November, they told him that we're sorry, there's really nothing we can do for you. Medically, there's just nothing. And we give you about 6 months to live. It could be shorter, but it'll be about 6 months. So at that point of time, he actually lived in a different city. I live in New Delhi. He lived in Bangalore at that point, and he had two young children and a wife. So once they got this kind of prognosis that there wasn't much time for him to live, they decided to make a move to Delhi because his wife's family lives in Delhi.
Mm,
And so I think in his mind, his whole thing was, I'll set her up and my kids closer to her family because I'm not going to be around for much longer. And
right.
in the meanwhile, they started looking at, options in terms of alternative, what they said was alternative therapy or healing, what's
Yeah.
out there, what can we try? And so a friend of theirs told them about Access. So while he was in Bangalore, I believe with another facilitator, he had 10 sessions. And what she recommended to him was that, I think you need 25. And that's where, you may start seeing some shifts. That's probably, with her awareness, she felt that's what his body was asking for.
Hmm.
And so they were in the middle of all of this. You've got a prognosis, you're not going to live, you've got two young children, you have to move cities, you have to find new schools for your children. And one of the children was a teenager, the other, had special needs. So a lot of stuff on, this couple's plate. And so one fine day I get a call from his wife, and she says, we just moved from Bangalore today. We just come to Delhi today. And, this is what's going on with him. I had got, the person who'd been working with him, she'd contacted me through someone else in Delhi. So I was aware that someone would contact me, but I didn't have too many details about what was going on. And so she briefly told me this is what's going on. And, we'd like to do sessions every day. We don't want breaks. We'd like to start tomorrow. So I said, great, we can go ahead and do that. So the following day, he, started with sessions with me, and we went 18 days straight doing sessions.
Wow.
And yeah, it was, actually, I think he gifted me so much in those 18 days because I just saw his whole journey from the point. Because the day he came to me, I remember just thinking that, he looked really scared and he looked really
Yeah.
depressed. And in those 18 days, from there to, the 18th day, when I could, kind of look at him and see the huge change that had just, come even in terms of conversation with him,
Yeah.
the kind of things he talked about. Because earlier it was all about, fear and about how he wasn't going to live, and, he just had so much on his plate. What was he going to do? How was he going to manage? And what would his kids do? What would his wife do? Stuff like that. So we did work on, many different things in the sessions. And his was, a highly malignant tumor. So we just kind of took it one day at a time. I think he came, I think, from a space where he didn't have any expectation.
Right.
uh, like he just didn't have an expectation. He didn't come to me saying, I'm going to get fine, or, this is what's going to cure me. He just came from a space that I don't know where to go from here. So
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're going to offer to me, I'm ready to,
Receive
embrace
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So that was amazing. So what happened was, after around the 16th day of the session, his father told him that there was a doctor in Mumbai that he wanted him to see, who was a chemotherapist. So my client was like, I don't want to see him. I've already been through chemotherapy. It's not helped me, and I'm not going to go ahead and do this because it makes no sense.
Hmm.
I'll just continue doing the things I'm doing. He also did, kind of start communicating with his body. So there was a lot of change in terms of diet, and he was walking and doing yoga and things like that, because those were the other things he incorporated. And over the few days, I just saw that, he seemed to be more comfortable in his skin. He was smiling more. When he came to me the first day, he was complaining of a lot of pain at the site where they'd actually operated him.
Yeah.
And I think in the next 2-3 days, that pain kind of subsided. And, I didn't always keep checking with him. Is it hurting you? Is it hurting you? But because he wouldn't bring it up, I kind of figured that he was doing a lot better
Yeah.
in terms of just the pain, because physically that was what was kind of, troubling him the most. So what I told him was that, in terms of the doctor that his father wanted him to see. So we also use the light and heavy tool. I said, use that tool. And so we work with different things, because, Access has so many wonderful tools that if we incorporate them in our daily life, they do bring a lot of change. Just, the clearing, just the tool, whether it's, how does it get any better than this? I remember they were looking for a house. They were, in the middle of trying to, ensure the kids would adjust into their new schools. And so just to kind of drive away those fears, when you're having a bad day, how does it get any better than this? And then he'd be like, this stuff really works, because I remember there was some delay in his son joining the school that he was supposed to join. And his wife also, she wouldn't actually come with him every day for the sessions, but once in a while we talk on the phone. And I would, share some of the tools with her as well, because she was kind of handling that portion of, getting the kids all settled and all of that. And so she used some of the tools, and then after 3 hours, she called me. She said, the school called me and they told me to bring him tomorrow. So I was like, how does it get better than that? So because, the other thing I wanted to just share was, because what he was carrying wasn't only his own stuff. It wasn't just the
Yeah.
prognosis that he had, that you're not going to live. It was also the stuff around him, like his wife or his family, where, they had the sense that, he's not going to be around any longer. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the things
yeah.
that Access talks about is how psychic we are, like how psychic
Yes.
we are as beings
Yeah.
and how psychic our
Yes.
bodies are,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that we pick up all of the points of view and all of the energies around us, and then we make it real and solid in our body. And so the gift of the bars and the gift of the tools is actually, it comes from, the bars is just a physical body process, as you know,
Yes.
that without you having to think about it, just releases all of the considerations and all of the points of view that you've ever picked up on or bought as real throughout any lifetime. And you don't have to do anything. You get to sit there and you get to just receive. Your body actually just gets to receive the relief and the change of those just kind of floating away. And then the rest of the Access tools are, for the rest of life, when you are up and mobile and, in your life of, how does it get any better than this? And what else is possible here that I haven't considered? And who does it belong to? And
So
what
that's
I'm,
what I was coming to now.
yeah,
Correct.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Who does
That's
it
what we
belong
used.
to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we used a lot of. Who does it belong to? Because, apart from what was going on with him, what was going on with his wife, what was going on with his kids, his parents, and how they were kind of so fearful of what, would happen in the future. And would he get okay? Would he not? And how would they manage without him? All of that.
Yeah.
So we use that a lot. But coming back to, the doctor that his father wanted him to see. So he said, actually, it sounds light, and it'll be my first travel after a long time, because he hadn't been, he had his own business, like a family business. So he'd kind of taken a back seat, because when he got diagnosed, he was kind of managing a big part of India, in terms of the work that they were doing. So he had to take a back seat because he couldn't really function like on a normal daily basis. He couldn't even, take care of himself properly at that point. And he said, so I've stopped traveling. I used to travel a lot for my work. So it would kind of be a first trip for me, since I got diagnosed. So he was kind of excited about it. I said, yeah, so do this. Like, I'll just go for one day. I said, yeah, okay, go for one day. So he went, and I remember so vividly, it was February 11th. And he went to Mumbai, he met the doctor, and the doctor looked at his old reports and said that, we should do a new scan because we want to know how much has the disease progressed. It's been a few months since you had a scan. So they went ahead and did a PET scan, I believe. And when they did that, well, let me just tell you that I got a call from him, and he said that there's no tumor. I said, what? He said, we did the scan and there's no tumor. I said, how does it get better than that? And he said, what else is possible? I said, you tell me what else is possible. So, because he was using the tool so much by that point, it was just kind of every moment, I think, he was just, kind of living the tools actually. So then I said, okay, back up a minute. So you did the scan and what? He said, and the scan shows that there's no tumor. I said, that is very, very interesting. I said, so what did the doctor say? He said the doctor was kind of, in disbelief. And then he looked at my reports again. And he said, it's very strange that, within a few months, because you've not been on any treatment, like, no chemotherapy, radiation, and stuff like that. And he said, these tumors typically don't disappear. Like, this is not possible that it would just go. So he apparently smiled at him and said that, I think we should do chemotherapy. So my client said, no, I don't think we should. so the doctor said, I still recommend it because you have a history. So my client said, yes, I understand. He said, but chemotherapy didn't help me in the past. And so they kind of came to agreement where they said, what we'll do is we'll watch it. Because I think if you've had, cancer in the body, at least traditionally what most doctors would say is screen it for the next couple of years with a scan every 3 months initially, I think, and then every 6 months. So they agreed that after 3 months they would do another scan and see what was going on.
And I think we might have just lost.
There's a
there
test.
You are. No. So you cut out at the 3 month part. So at 3.
Sure.
That's okay.
So what I was saying was every 3 months, they agreed that he'd have a scan to check what was going on with his body,
cool.
Just to ensure that there was no tumor that had kind of come back, or there was no growth in any other part of his body. And what I said after that was that typically, traditionally, that's what you're told, I think, when you have cancer, that it needs to be screened every 3 months initially, and then, every 6 months, just to ensure that everything's all right. But what I was saying was another thing that came up was there's some test, it's called CA199, I believe, which is called a tumor marker test. So I believe the previous year, last year, when he was diagnosed, it was like really, really high, very elevated. And then in February, when he had a scan, it was just something like a 5. I think earlier it was like 500 something.
Wow.
And in February, 5. So that was another reassurance for the doctor that, the cancer had obviously left his body, because sometimes they can think there can be a regression and it's kind of hiding or whatever. And so that was, a wonderful experience. And
that's amazing.
It was amazing. And once he was back, his wife and they came back to me, and we continued to do, some sessions. And actually they both had learned how to run bars also, both the husband and wife. And so he continued coming back for a few sessions, because then it was about, I get to live. What do I do now?
Well, I'm really, really glad you said that, because one of the things that I've been noticing with people that have these diseases in their body, dis-ease in their body, is that sometimes there's a wish to live and no way to figure out how to do that. And other times there's actually a wish to go.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that you just recently And I want to bring the conversation here if you'd like to go here. I know that you just
Sure.
recently lost your sister.
Yes, I did. That's correct.
And one of the things that really stuck out to me when we were talking about this was a conversation that you had with Dane, who's one of the co-creators of Access, where he asked you if you had given her a choice and that she had chosen to go.
That's correct.
And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that, because she's a body that also had a tumor,
That's
that
correct.
you also were able to be the space of choice for her, and she chose something different.
She did. So yeah, this is about my sister. Um, she was older than me, and we just got a diagnosis in April. And the way we got the diagnosis was kind of interesting also, because the only symptom she had was some swelling in her feet, and that kind of continued for a couple of weeks, and it was bothering her a little. So she decided to go to the doctor and see what was going on with that. And when she did that, they said, okay, let's do ultrasound initially and see if there's something causing this, because there's definitely swelling that's there. They gave her some medication to help with the swelling. It helped a little, but not a lot. So they said, let's go ahead and investigate. And once the ultrasound happened, there was a tumor that was found, and so my darling sister, the potent creator she was, went ahead and created something very rare in her body, which now I know is probably 1 in a million people or something, a tumor that she had. The location was the IVC, which is the inferior vena cava,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the location, it became a little more difficult for medical science to kind of help her. I personally actually did go to several doctors in Delhi with all her if there was a solution, because where when she was hospitalized initially, we were told there was just a 20% chance of her surviving if a surgery happened. And in her case also, so basically it was kind of inoperable in a sense. And chemotherapy, radiation, we were told were not solutions for this as well for her. So that was just April 22nd, and she passed on the 1st of July. So it was actually a very short period, just a little over 2 months. And she was gone. And like I was sharing earlier with you, till about 15 days before she passed, she seemed to be doing really well. Um, Initially, when she got diagnosed, she started having pain at the site of the tumor. So for the first 10 days, she was on a painkiller. Post that, she got off the painkillers, the pain had subsided. She was not having any medicine for the swelling in her legs, that also subsided. But 15 days before she passed, she developed like a cold and a cough. So initially, uh, everyone thought it was just like a viral, but it seemed that somewhere now in hindsight, when I look back, and so coming to the conversation with Dane, I'll talk about that in a minute. But looking back, it seems that there was something else she created, because now the tumor was reducing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was actually a thrombus that was there that had set into the vein, and that kind of traveled towards her heart, to the right portion of her heart. So that is what caused the complication, and sort of was responsible for her going, because then her body started going into a multiple organ failure. And so coming to the choice part of it, is what you brought up. We
Well,
worked on a lot of different. Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to just like maybe even expand on the conversation of choice a little bit, because I know that's not necessarily a popular point of view of,
Yes.
it's not something we actually talk about a lot. Most of the time when we talk about disease or tumors or cancer, we're talking about something that happens to us. And you've said several times that, she's a potent creator and, created this in her body. I think one of the points of view of Access, and for those of you watching, of course, take everything of what's light for you is true for you and what's heavy for you isn't. But one of the conversations that we have is that if we are the creators of everything, in our bodies and in our lives, then we can create something different. And
Absolutely.
as as the creator of everything, that means we have total choice. And one of the gifts that you were to your sister and that you are to your clients, Ramona, and that all of us who do bars are, is we become the space for people to choose something different if they'd like to.
That's true.
So will you talk about the conversation that you had with Dane? Because I got that it was I mean, losing a sister is sad.
Yeah,
And
it's been really hard losing her. She was, one of my closest friends. Actually, we shared everything ever since we were small together, and I was very close to her. So what happened was once she did pass, I kind of, that night I ran my kids' bars because both my children were very close to her as well, and they were obviously very upset that day. But from the next day, I just couldn't bring myself to do anything for anyone, including my own mother. I really wanted to run her bars, but I just couldn't bring myself. I just couldn't use my hands on anyone, and I kind of went into this space where it was kind of the wrongness of me, where I think I was kind of questioning that why was it. So I shared about one client. I've had experiences with some other clients as well,
yeah,
including children. Why was it that this whole thing came to me where I was working with tumors, I was working with cancer, and other people chose something different and they recovered and they're doing absolutely okay. And why did my sister have to go? So what was the message that the universe was trying to give me? Was it just an awareness that I was kind of ignoring, that hey, there's something coming up really close to you, so be prepared, and these are the tools that you can use. But So that was kind of the space I was coming from, and I had so many questions. And also, why was it that I was hesitating in running bars or doing any body processes for even my own family? So I had written to Dane actually, when my sister was hospitalized initially, and I've written to him in the past, and sometimes he's taken a while to respond. He does you know usually reply back to emails, I believe. But uh, the day I wrote to him about my sister, just within a few hours, he wrote back and he said, I contributed to her and I hope it helps. And his last line to me was, "You're a gift." And when she passed, I thought, hey, I'm not a gift. I couldn't help her. Or I couldn't give her what I wanted to give her, which was I wanted her to get better.
yeah, of
So
course.
I'm being very honest. I'm being very honest here. I'm just going to
Yeah, please. Yeah,
be honest and put it, just how I experienced it. And so then I wrote to him again and I said, my sister passed and this is the space I'm coming from. I'm, going into the strongness and I can't bring myself to do anything for anyone, including any bars. So he wrote back to me again within a few hours, and I think he's just amazing. He probably opens his email. He probably has 1,000 emails, and energetically he knows which one needs a response right away or requires his energy. So I was very, very grateful that he was responding to my emails, and we had a conversation. He wrote back to me and asked me to speak to him, which we did have this conversation. And like I shared earlier, my sister's been a gift even in her passing. So that was another gift she gave me, this facilitation by Dane. She gifted that to me too.
yeah,
So during the conversation we had, one of the first things he started saying was that what if you had this unique capacity, which is the capacity that when you work with someone, you're able to give them the gift of choice. So I asked him, so what exactly do you mean by that? Like, how does it apply to my sister? So he said you can give the choice, as in if a person wants to recover and they want to live a life and they want to be happy, they can do that, and you're able to assist them do that, fairly quickly. And if they make a choice to go, then you're able to give them that space and the ease with going. So when he said that, first I said, I don't want that gift.
that's
I
not
don't
a
want to
gift.
give that gift. That's not a gift. I don't want to give that. I mean, you're telling me I give that gift to my sister? So we spoke a bit more, and then he said that would you rather that she'd had, a lot of suffering, or a lot of struggle with what was going on with her body. And then he asked her, he said, do you think that with what was going on she'd want to live? And actually, when he asked me that question, because I think even though somewhere I had that awareness, because she was my sister, I didn't want to look at it.
Yeah,
Like I'm saying, I'm being very honest. Um, And so I said, no, she didn't. So he said, so, you just made it easier for her. So then when I looked back and I said that actually in those 2 months and 10 days or whatever it was, she really didn't have much pain.
Mm.
Um, and, we were able to spend a lot of time with her. I was seeing her every day. We live in the same city. And usually we don't meet every day. We used to meet once a week or something. And I could see her every day because, I was doing the bars and other processes for her.
Yeah.
So the last 2 months we spent a lot of time together. And so then it actually kind of hit me. I said, you can give someone choice, but you can't choose for them,
No.
you know. So if that was the choice she made, which was, the choice to go, um, she was able to do that with dignity, with ease, and with her family around her. Actually, the day she went, uh, I was running, a couple of body processes on her, and I shared that with Dane. Communion with the earth was the last thing I ran on her, and a little after that she passed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I'm like, thank you so much for sharing that. When you told me the story, I was like, I really want the world to know that, and what a gift that you were to her. And for everybody watching, like if you are somebody who's struggling with tumors and with cancer in your body, there is a different possibility. And there are bars facilitators and practitioners and certified facilitators of access consciousness processes and body processes all over the world. And you can go to accessconsciousness.com and you can actually search your area of the world and find somebody. And if there isn't somebody near, email somebody else and ask them, because there's also a lot of people that do it that aren't listed. And Ramona, I'm so grateful for you and so grateful for you being willing to share all of this with us. And thank you.
thank you, Christel.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so for any more information, go to accessconsciousness.com. And so grateful that you joined us today. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.